Thank you for making that prayer this morning. I can't help it, but as I looked out over this crowd today, I kept thinking, I hope you don't cheat yourself today. I hope you don't cheat yourself today by meeting and connecting with the people who are in this room. Because as I look out and see you, I know you are amazing. Truly amazing. And I am honored that you're here this morning. There's an old Chinese saying that says, the man who asks a question is a fool for 5 minutes. And he who never asks a question is a fool forever. So I'm going to invite you to be fools for the next 5 minutes and to ask questions. Usually it's my job as the minister to be the one who has the answers, to be the one who stands here and gives you all the ways to achieve spiritual enlightenment and to tell you how it's done. Today I want to invite you to live in a question I am not going to give you the answer to. I want you to embrace this question because it's always the questions of life that move us forward, never the answers. I believe that the world that we're perceiving right now is a world that has answered the questions that we've been asking. And the deeper and the bigger the questions we answer, the deeper and the bigger our world will get. So it is Aloha Sunday. And the question is couched in a beautiful phrase that is part of the great collection made by Mary Kawena Pukui. This is a collection of beautiful Hawaiian proverbs that are filled with wisdom. We always talk about one of these every Aloha Sunday. We do that because we want to find that place in Hawaiian spirituality where we can connect, where we can understand, we can meet together, and that way we feel a more a part of this land, a more a part of these people, and our own spiritual awareness grows. So the phrase we're looking at today is this one, ka home kaupoku ole. Ka is a Hawaiian word meaning the. Home means home. Kaupoke means ridgepole, which I'll explain in a minute. And ole is a negative suffix. Whenever you put ole after a word, it means not. In fact, in Pidgin, when they say not, that's a carryover from ole. If I was to say to you, aloha ole, it means no aloha for you. Isn't that cute? You can learn that. Aloha ole. Yeah. When you meet someone who's not quite being so nice to you, and you can say, oh, well, aloha ole. So what does this mean? It means of the home without a ridgepole. Ka home kaupoke ole. Now, what that sort of means for us, according to Dr. Pukui, is any place that is occupied but is not actually a home. We have phrases like that, like the lights are on but no one's home. You heard that before. Or the elevator's not going quite to the top floor. There are all kind of phrases that indicate there's a person there, appears to be a person there, but somebody's not really there. And that's a way a lot of us live our life. We have this being that we walk around in, but we're not really always fully here. That great actor, Cary Grant, once said, I have a very simple recipe for life. I get up in the morning, I go to bed at night, and in between, I try to occupy my time. Well, what a fulfilled life is that? And that is, unfortunately, the way a lot of us are living. We're living, we get up in the morning, and we try and occupy our time, and then we go on. What Dr. Pukui is suggesting this phrase is that the ridgepole of life is something different. That we can have a home, we can have a house, we can have the framework, but without the ridgepole, it's not really a home. Course in Miracles says, our journey is simply a journey to God who is our home. My question for you today, I want you to live in this question is, what is the ridgepole of your home? What is that centerpiece? If you're not sure what a ridgepole is, it's a horizontal beam along the ridge of a roof into which the rafters are fastened. You come to church and learn this. So these are rafters, by the way, and there's a ridgepole. You can't see it necessarily, it's on the roof, but there's a ridgepole thing in the center, and it holds everything together. Here's a picture of what one might have looked like in a Hawaiian style or more of a rustic construction. In modern day terms, they look like that. The beams are together, and it's that long pole on the top. That's a ridgepole. So my question to you is, what is the ridgepole of your life? Because that's the piece that's holding everything together. We're going to talk about that in a minute. The ridgepole of our life is that piece that links and holds the roof not only up, but it gives it strength and stability. And our life, we spend a lot of time in what I think is like the rafters of our existence, these physical things that we can see. Some of the ones that I identified are this. We spend a lot of time trying to go around and be happy. Oh yeah, we do. We do almost everything we can to be happy. And we teach here a lot about ways to be happy. I mean, that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of these things. I really want you to know that. I'm going to talk about a bunch of these things. Please understand that I am not saying that these are not good things. They are not the ridgepole. I am saying that. Relationships. Oh man, we live in a world where every song is about can't live if living is without you. Can't, you know the one. And then, oh my, I could go on for about a half an hour nonstop because they're my favorite songs too. And they talk about that. We get very invested in all kinds of relationships. Relationships with family, relationships with parents, relationships with children, relationships with our beloved soulmate chosen one. Okay, this may come as a shock to you. Sometimes those relationships don't last. I know it comes as a shock to a lot of people. Sometimes people get divorced. Sometimes people that we love die. Sometimes they move away, our best friends. Sometimes our children don't want to speak to us anymore. Sometimes our parents don't want to speak to us anymore. Relationships change. So I'm not saying the relationships are bad and that we shouldn't love with our whole heart and that we shouldn't give our life in love. We shouldn't. I'm not saying that. What I am suggesting is maybe that's not supposed to be the ridgepole of our life. Because a ridgepole is unchanging. The ridgepole is the part that never goes away. It is the part that is always there, that holds everything together. And relationships, happiness, our pride, even our pride in good things. I can be so proud that we passed legislation for this or that or the other. I can be proud that I created this business. I can be proud that I'm debt-free, or I can be proud that I've done good things. We can have all kinds of good pride, but every time we have pride or connection in anything or relationship in anything that is in the relative world, it is not permanent. And the ridgepole is that permanent part of our life. You understand? Same thing with altruism, security, and kindness. Kindness gets a lot of people. Oh, my religion is kindness. I'm here to be kind to people. It's a wonderful thing. It is a beautiful thing, but it is not the ridgepole of our life. The Bhagavad Gita talks a lot about this idea of permanence and impermanence. If you'll understand that the ridgepole is the permanent part of your life. So as you think about the question that I've been asking you, think about what is the absolute permanent bedrock thing that you believe and know to be true in your life. The Gita says, the impermanent has no reality. Reality lies in the eternal. Those who have seen the boundary between these two have attained the end of all knowledge. Realize that which pervades the universe and is indestructible. No power can affect this unchanging, imperishable reality. The body is mortal, but he who dwells in the body is immortal and immeasurable. Now, this is not meant to be discouraging. It's meant to be encouraging. It says the real you that lives in this frame that we call the house, the body, is absolutely immortal and immeasurable. And when we link ourselves to the eternal, the ridgepole, then we are linked onto something that will never change. It always amazes me how much people struggle in this life to keep everything the same. Don't we? I don't get it. Whenever we are struggling to try and keep anything the same, we have to understand that we are going against every single force of the universe. Because the universe is changing everything all the time. And when we are struggling to keep things the same, we are fighting against the very tide of life itself. Jesus said it this way: don't hoard treasure down here where it gets eaten by moths and corroded by rust, or worse, stolen by burglars. Stockpile treasure in heaven where it is safe from moth or rust and burglars. It's obvious, isn't it? The place where your treasure is the place you will most want to be, and the place you will end up being. So if all of my attention is in the rafters of life, which are subject to change and which are not permanent, and not on the permanent thing, that is going to be subject to all kinds of destruction. But focusing on the ridgepole of life is what Jesus is saying. That's the treasure we build in heaven. So the ridgepole, if you understand how this goes in terms of construction, it has to be higher than who we are. If you have a ridgepole that's lower, you're going to have a very strange house. Trust me, you're going to be, I don't know what it would be. You'd have a canoe. The ridgepole ties everything else together. And that's really important, because I'm always disturbed by people who are able to compartmentalize their life. The people who will come on Sunday and be, oh, I just love unity, I love unity. And then Monday, they report to some job that really cheats people out of their work and money. You know, when they do some unethical thing, or they're doing something that's not quite. The ridgepole of our life is a belief system. It is an essence of who we are that ties absolutely everything together. So we can't compartmentalize if we're truly tied into that ridgepole. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says that the main thing that we are willing to believe is in a power greater than ourselves, and that we should live by spiritual principles. Now, I included that because I don't think there's any program in the last 100 years that has done more to lift the consciousness and to heal people than the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And how do they do it? They're a spiritual program. And they say that you must have a higher power. They're talking about the ridgepole, that everything else in our house may have fallen down, but there is a ridgepole that still stands. And if we focus on that, we can rebuild the entire house. It's that important. And there are millions of people all over the world who know that. I want us to know it and embrace it as well, too. The Apostle Paul said, you have one master, one faith, one God who rules over all, works through all, and is present in all. Everything you are and think and do is permeated with oneness. Now there you go. That's the ridgepole. The one over all, in all, and permeating through the oneness. What is that for you? Are you familiar with it? Are you connected with it? My invitation is for you to examine the house that you are living, the house of consciousness that you are living in, and see what the ridgepole is. I'm sure if you take stock of all the activities, you will find beautiful relationships. You will find great kindnesses that you are doing. You will find altruistic motives and all kinds of beautiful activities. There's probably 100 things you can be proud of that you've done. But what is the ridgepole that is tying them all together? Do you know? It's important to know. There's a wonderful story that the Buddha tells, and I tell this to you because the great philosopher and poet Friedrich Nietzsche once said that we will never be given a question to ask that we are not prepared to find the answer for. So as you think about this question, this is a story for you. The Buddha told it early. It's from the Lotus Sutra. Told it early in his teaching because it's so fundamental. It's a story about a poor man who went to visit a friend. This poor man came to his friend's house, who was very wealthy. And when he was in his friend's house, he had all kinds of banquet food, and he stayed in this beautiful suite. It was like the Marriott, and there were music, and there was all this luxury, and he was just, this was fantastic. And he ate his fill, and he slept, and he drank. And when he was sleeping, the master of the house, the one who was very wealthy, slipped into his room and very quietly sewed in to the hem of his jacket a jewel, a large and priceless jewel. And he sewed it into the hem of this poor man's coat, but he didn't tell him. So the next morning, the poor man wakes up, and he leaves, and he goes about the world and says thank you, and he's off on his own. And he struggles through his life. He can't seem to find a really good paying job, a good way to support himself. He lives in hovels all throughout his life, and he's constantly hungry and begging for food, and he's struggling all of his life. Later on in life, and years go past, he encounters the rich man once again, his friend. And his friend says to him, "What are you doing living like this? In the hem of your jacket, there is a jewel." And the poor man was so excited and so happy when he found this gem, because he knew that there was enough wealth in this to satisfy every dream he had ever had. And the Buddha looks at his students and he says, "You are like that man. We are all like that man. We don't know the gem that is hemmed into the garment of our being. And we're quite often walking around the world acting like beggars, trying to eke our way out in this world, hoping for a little bit of something, and we don't realize that the jewel of priceless value is part of our being." My invitation for you today is to return to that house that we live in and to find that ridgepole, find that jewel that is there for us. Charles Fillmore is the co-founder of Unity, and he said the fact that you can always return to the Father's house, the ideal world, carries with it the possibility of fulfillment in your life expression. If we can just bring our consciousness back to that place and focus on that, then there is fulfillment. So here's a commitment I invite you to make. I commit to knowing the essence, the ridgepole of my life. Okay? I commit to knowing the essence, the ridgepole of my life, just to knowing it. Will you say that with me together? I commit to knowing the essence, the ridgepole of my life. Beautiful. That's a great commitment. Okay, now here's the test. How are you going to do that? And don't tell me I haven't told you. Oh, wait, what's that, dear? Prayer and meditation, and think about God all the time, read a little. Okay, there's a formula for those of you that do, you might not remember. Read a little, meditate more, and think about God all the time. Okay, now let's say that all together. Read a little, meditate more, and think about God all the time. I didn't make this up. This is a recipe that came from Paramahansa Yogananda in an interview that he had with Roy Eugene Davis on how to achieve enlightenment. This is the enlightenment we're seeking. This is the answer we're seeking. I know of nothing in this world that can enrich your life and deepen it more than a practice of meditation, because that is where you find the jewel. Will you close your eyes with me, please, for a moment? We're going to actually do that in this moment. And I'm going to invite you, as we come into this time of meditation, to bring your question. To bring that question of what is the essence, the ridgepole, the center beam of my life? I don't think that the answer will come to you in one great brilliant flash. It might. Instead, I think it will come piece by piece, like a lotus slowly opening. As you spend time with God, you will know. As we come together now in the sacred and holy silence,